the reasons that Brown and Bell weren't happy, the kind of leader that Roethlisberger is or isn't. So, to me, it's a big year. If the Steelers don't make it back to the playoffs, or if more of this, this type of culture is allowed to fester and go off the tracks, I think Tomlin could be gone. So it's a big year in Pittsburgh for not only him but for Ben Roethlisberger too, to see if they can't put this thing back on the right track. As far as the Eagles go, with Andre Dillard, I think a lot of that hand in the ground stuff is overrated. If you watch a lot of the Eagles tape or see any of their games, Jason Peters, the left tackle Hall of Famer, he rarely puts his hand in the ground. He always starts in a 2-point stance. So, I don't know if Dillard will ever have to put his hand in the ground. If he does, he'll want to do it because he feels comfortable doing it. I like the pick. I think this draft for the Eagles has been all about Carson Wentz. They got his bodyguard for presumably the next 10 years if they think Dillard is their man, because Peters, he will retire. There's even talk that maybe Peters slides inside and plays guard and Dillard's a day one starter at left tackle. I'd be surprised if Peters is willing to do that, but that could be a possibility. And then in the second round, they go for two skill guys, Miles Sanders out of Penn State, who the Eagles absolutely love, and the receiver from Stanford, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And both of those guys will come out and meet us today. Miles is coming out at 11:30 for his press conference. I mean, they get him into town quick. And then Arcega-Whiteside's coming in at 2:30. So there'll be more video for you, Tom. I can send it along, and you can practice trying to convert it into whatever file you need to.
I will do that over the weekend. I thought it was just going to be a real simple thing. I'd get up this morning and then convert the file and be ready to go. I don't know. I had to play with it, and I didn't have time to play with it. I'll be honest with you. Kyle, I know he had to jump off. He's got some things going on today as well, and I know he stayed up late watching that stupid movie, The Endgame. I shouldn't call it stupid. I mean, everybody in the world loves Marvel movies. This comes from the guy that is a big Game of Thrones fan, and it's amazing that when I talk to somebody that's never seen the Game of Thrones. So, okay. The Endgame, the Avengers. Are you a Marvel fan?
We talked about this, I think, last week, about Breaking Bad and the Game of Thrones, and there are two series I've never seen, and yet I have seen the Avengers movies, and I know Thursday night was, I think, the debut, and my wife and two daughters went to it, and I was, of course, in Philadelphia for the draft. But look, I could take it or leave it. I mean, I'm not clamoring. They went wearing their Avengers T-shirts. They went out and bought them that day. My daughters and my wife, and to them it's a big deal. And my daughter packed Kleenexes because I guess it was sad at the end. I don't know, but to me, I don't get wrapped up in that kind of thing. I mean, my whole world for my whole life has been sports, and that's the thing I get wrapped up in. It just doesn't jive with my wife and daughters or my mother. Nobody's a sports fan in my family. My father was, but that's what I get wrapped up in. But I'll go see the Avengers. Sure. I mean, it's a 3-hour movie. That's another thing. I don't know if I can.
Oh wow! I had no idea it was that long.
Yeah, I can.
Wow.
I don't know if I can sit through 3 hours of a movie, but I'm sure I'll see it once the fervor dies down a little bit. Because my wife and my daughters will probably want to see it again, and they'll drag me along to it, and that's fine.
But we'll sit through 3 hours of football any day, any time, and we got us some weekend binge.
You're right. You're absolutely right about
we got us some weekend binge going on, and that's the NFL draft. So let's kind of start from day one. I know we're into day two, and I'm not trying to minimize round 2 and round 3, but it's just not as exciting as round 1. It's kind of like round 1, we open up all the cool presents. Round 2 and 3, it's just underwear, T-shirts, and socks. So, I mean, but you need all of those. You need underwear, you need T-shirts and socks. So those are very important components to life. So
what's round 4 and 7? What kind of gifts are rounds 4 through 7? I mean, if you're talking underwear and socks, rounds 2 and 3, what are we looking at? Shoelaces?
The stuff you get in the stockings. The things you get in the stockings. Everybody thinks, oh, this is the cool stocking stuff. Oh, well, look, it's the Star Wars version of lifesavers, or it's it's a Pez dispenser.
Right. Yeah, Avenger gum. Yeah,
Avenger gum. That's right. So,
well, I mean, it's just guys we've never heard of. That's the thing. A lot of these, unless you're a real draftnik or college beatnik or whatever you want to call it. I mean, a lot of these guys you never heard of, but you're right. They're necessary. There's a lot of more misses later, in the draft. So you're getting guys that you hope will be able to add depth and be developed into serviceable NFL players going forward.
I tell you what, and I made this analogy earlier, so I'll try to be more politically correct. I said, we like to jab at Roger Goodell in the NFL. It's like picking on the fat kids at school. It's an easy target. I should have chosen a better choice of words. But nonetheless, the NFL is an easy target to go after. But I have to admit, I like this taking the draft on the road. We saw them in Philadelphia last year, Chicago, now Nashville. This turnout in Nashville is amazing. What's going on down there, and you would think that the crowd would fall off a little bit in day 2. It didn't seem to happen. We'll see what happens with day 3. But if you could give a passing grade to something that the NFL has done for the fans, that is to take the draft out of Radio City Music Hall, out of their cave, and stop lowering their nose here. As well, if you're not somebody, you're not coming in here, and you're not going to get close to us. Now the fans are so close, it's almost like a concert setting. And the way they did the intro, I don't know if you watched the beginning of the draft. I'm sure you did. And your stars are. Da, 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 da. So they've done so much over the last 3 years in the draft. And really, a city getting the draft may not be equal to getting a Super Bowl, but it certainly has that economic and fan outpouring impact. And how awesome was that for them to select the Giants fan? But it was a contest that they had to get season tickets for the next 100 years. So I think in lieu of us going after the NFL so negatively so many times over so many different things, plays and replays and refs and all of this, and Roger Goodell, we could go on him all day long. But I think this, taking it out of Radio City Music Hall and taking it on the road to the NFL cities, to the fans, is a huge plus.
Yeah, I think it's great. It does give other cities a chance to experience the excitement. You wonder what took so long. I mean, they had it in New York forever and ever, and then they had it in Chicago, I think, for 2 years, and then they gave it to Philadelphia, and then last year Dallas, and this year Nashville. I'm not sure where it is next year, but it'll be somewhere else other than Nashville. We had a colleague of mine, Les Bowen, who I think you're familiar with. Super guy, great writer. He writes for the Philadelphia Daily News, and he was there, and I asked him how it compared to the one in Philadelphia, and he said that it was very, very crowded and congested, almost kind of like a Times Square in New York City feel to it. Everybody was kind of clustered into one area, not a lot of room to stretch out, like Philadelphia, which was on a parkway, which was geographically perfect, very wide space. And he said another difference was there seemed to be more fans of teams from around the league. Like it was more of maybe an easier city to get to. I'm not sure why, but there were more fans from other teams in attendance, whereas in Philadelphia 2 years it seemed to be more Eagles fans with kind of just a small mix of teams or fans from other teams. So I thought that was interesting. But I think it's a great idea the NFL had. And, I think it's great for fans to experience it. I mean, the first round is just, that's kind of become a prime time reality TV episode. So I just love it. You mentioned a season ticket fan from the Giants. Saw a lot of funny comments on social media after they took Daniel Jones at number 6 that, the fan's he wants to give his tickets back. He doesn't want them anymore. Or, they see Eli Manning playing quarterback for 98 of those 100 years. So, it's kind of funny. Fans are having fun with it on social media.
Well, as a Manning fan, the other Manning fan, and as a Colts fan, I could relate. There was a time when we thought that Peyton Manning would be a Colt for 900 million years. Well, turns out that he is. He's out in front of our stadium in the form of a statue. But not everybody gets a statue, man. Not everybody gets a statue. Here's the other thing, though, that maybe we could say you could do better, the NFL. We have all this hype, all these pre-activities, but it's time to do the draft. And I think everybody in the world, I could be wrong here, but I think everybody in the world knew that the Arizona Cardinals were going to go with Kyler Murray. Do I think it was the best decision? No. We still don't know what's going to happen with Josh Rosen. I honestly would have probably given him a C- or a D for the pick of Kyler Murray. Not that Kyler Murray is not a good pick. I mean, there's only been one other guy that's similar in size, and we know that he has the biggest contract in NFL history right now. We know that he could have gone to the MLB, but he feels like he made the best decision for himself. And you got to wonder, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, he likens himself to the Great Gatsby of wearing the pink suit. And I didn't catch on to that at first when I saw them interviewing. I'm like, he's tipping his hand because I'm seeing the red tie. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the red like Arizona. The Cardinals, he already knows, and we all already knew. But then he got into the story about the Great Gatsby, and I'm thinking, that's great, Kyle Murray, but just like Scarface and the Great Gatsby, great movies, great show to watch, but the ending is kind of tragic. Do you really want to compare yourself to those kind of endings? I don't know. But Kyle Murray is either going to be a rock star or he's going to be a dud. A stud or a dud. It's going to be one or the others, none in the middle. What are your thoughts about the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray, obviously quarterback out of Oklahoma?
Yeah, well, that was the whole storyline for this draft. There were a couple of them, and that was the top storyline was Kyler Murray, and then off of that is what becomes of Josh Rosen, and then we saw last night what became of Josh Rosen. He got traded to the Miami Dolphins, and
right.
There was all that drama. It was almost like Josh Rosen was Joe Montana, the way they just kept talking about him endlessly on the NFL Network. But I get it. I mean, it was a storyline, and they really played it up to the hilt. So. The Cardinals better be right. I mean, this is an organization that spent their last 2 first-round picks on a quarterback, and that really sets a franchise back. I mean, there's so many holes in Arizona that you wonder if a quarterback can, overcome all of those. Generally, they can't, but you hope that he can have a decent first year, and they keep him healthy and they protect him up front. He has some weapons to throw to. I'm not sure he has all that. I know they have the running back, David Johnson, but I think he had a down year last year for whatever reason. So we'll see. We'll see how it all works out. But clearly I get why they took him number 1. Cliff Kingsbury has a history with him going back to his sophomore year in high school, Murray. So, I get it. But, on the other hand, if you're a franchise, I might have traded down a couple spots and built the defense and tried to develop Rosen. I mean, but there's no leadership there. I know they switched, coaches, but, Arizona to me is just kind of floundering away there in the desert. We'll see if Murray can get them back on track, but I think it's going to take a little time.
You make a valid point about Kingsbury. I think it's kind of like it was more of a pick for Kingsbury than a pick for Arizona. So we'll see. I mean, I think he's a very talented quarterback, and I think that certainly he has some potential, and so I don't want to downgrade that, but it's kind of like, let's see what happens. So the 49ers make some chicken and bacon. Of course, with the Raiders, Nick Bosa, another big storyline. Nick Bosa going, I think he's actually from the Bay Area, but obviously from Ohio State. You got to love this pick for the Niners and getting the best pass rusher in the class. Kudos to them.
Well, yeah, the Niners they've drafted defensive linemen in 4 of the last 5 drafts. I mean, it's almost like when Matt Millen ran the Detroit Lions. I mean, they drafted wide receivers all the time, and they didn't have any great effect. So, I don't know. I mean, now all of a sudden Solomon Thomas can't play, and they want to trade him. So, again, this to me is another organization that just can't get it right. If you're going to continue to draft one position year after year after year, what does that say about your evaluation of the players? And, to me, Bosa, everybody loves Bosa. He's got the name, but, the guy hasn't played in a year. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm not really sold on this pick. I really am not. I mean, he may end up being a great player, but to me, the 49ers are just another organization that just doesn't seem to get it right year after year. Another D lineman to me, I know they were going to do it, but it just makes no sense to me. It doesn't speak highly of what you've been able to evaluate over the last 5 years if you keep picking the same position over and over and over again.
We talked about this number 3 pick for a while, and the Jets have it, and they picked Quentin Williams out of Alabama. I'm okay with it. I mean, if you're a Jets fan, you just gotta like kind of as you guys have learned to say there in Philadelphia, it's just to trust the process. And certainly, you can make a case for Josh Allen, I guess, but the Jets needed more of a pure pass rusher. But this kid will be dominant. I like Quentin Williams out of Alabama, and